Ethan Vance was a 26-year-old medical student working night shifts as an urban courier to pay for his younger sister's cancer treatments. His life was measured in minutes, delivery routes, and constant exhaustion. It was a torrential Tuesday evening in downtown Chicago. The rain fell in heavy, blinding sheets, washing over the neon streetlights of the Grand Central Transit Terminal. People rushed through the concourse, heads bowed against the freezing storm, completely indifferent to the world around them. At precisely 8:14 p.m., Ethan was sprinting down the slippery granite steps of Entrance 4, holding a water-sealed delivery pouch under his jacket. He was running 10 minutes late for his final drop-off. But as he reached the mid-landing of the subway stairwell, something caught his eye. An elderly woman, frail and shivering in a worn navy coat, was struggling near the bottom steps. Beside her rested a massive, vintage black leather trunk reinforced with heavy brass latches and thick leather straps. The trunk looked impossibly large for her small frame. Her hands, covered in faded wool gloves, trembled as she desperately tried to lift it up a single step. Ethan slowed down. He had a delivery countdown ticking on his phone, but he couldn't just walk past her. "Excuse me," Ethan said, stepping closer. "Do you need some help with that?" The old woman looked up. Her eyes were milky with age, her face deeply lined with fatigue. She clutched a silver rosary around her neck. "Oh, bless you, son," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the rain. "I can't seem to get this up the stairs. It's much heavier than I remembered." Ethan stepped forward and wrapped both hands around the thick brass handle of the trunk. As he hoisted it off the cold stone, a sudden wave of confusion hit him. The trunk wasn't just heavy, it felt unnaturally dense, as if packed with wet cement. And as he lifted it closer to his chest, his nose caught a faint, disturbing odor leaking from the keyhole latch, a sickening blend of harsh chemical bleach and copper. Ethan shook off the uneasy feeling, assuming it was just old antique books or preserved chemicals. He carried the trunk up 60 granite steps, carefully placing it onto the dry pavement of the upper street concourse. High above them, mounted to the iron archway of the station, a high-definition municipal surveillance camera recorded every single detail. It captured Ethan's face clearly under the streetlights, his hands firmly gripping the trunk's handles, and his rain-soaked jacket illuminated by passing headlights. "Thank you, young man," the old woman said, giving him a weak, grateful smile. "You are a savior." Ethan nodded, pressed his delivery confirmation on his phone, and disappeared into the rainy night. He thought he had simply done a good deed. He had no idea that in less than 4 hours, that single act of kindness would completely destroy his life. At 12:42 a.m., Ethan was lying on his sofa in his small third-floor apartment, sound asleep after an exhausting 14-hour shift. Crash! The heavy oak door of his apartment splintered into pieces. Red and blue strobe lights flashed violently through his windows. Before Ethan could even open his eyes, 4 tactical SWAT officers hurled him off the couch onto the hardwood floor. Heavy boots pinned his spine down as steel handcuffs snapped around his wrists. Laser sights danced across his face. "Ethan Vance, don't move. Keep your hands where we can see them," screamed lead homicide detective Marcus Vance. "What is happening? What did I do?" Ethan yelled, his heart pounding violently against his ribs as he was dragged out into the rain in his bare feet. He was thrown into the back of an unmarked police cruiser and driven straight to the precinct. 30 minutes later, Ethan sat chained to a cold metal table inside interrogation room number 4. 2 detectives tossed a thick manila folder onto the table. Detective Vance leaned in close, his face cold and unreadable. "You think you were clever, Ethan, dumping a payload like that in our city." "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a courier. I was delivering food parcels all night." Ethan stammered, sweat pouring down his forehead. Detective Vance opened the file and slammed a series of high-resolution photographs onto the table. Ethan's stomach lurched into his throat. The photos showed the exact same vintage black leather trunk Ethan had carried up the subway stairs. But these photos were taken at 11:30 p.m. at the city reservoir pumping station. The trunk had been found floating near the drainage locks, its heavy brass latches partially unbuckled. And inside the trunk lay the dismembered body of Victor Sterling, a notorious billionaire venture capitalist who had vanished from his high-security penthouse 48 hours prior. Ethan stayed in pure terror. No, this is impossible. I just helped an old lady carry that up the stairs. She asked me for help. Detective Vance let out a harsh, cynical laugh. Nice try, kid, but we have forensic evidence. We dusted that trunk. Your fingerprints are stamped all over the brass latches, the top handle, and the leather surface. No one else's fingerprints are on it, not even an old lady's. And guess what else? Vance turned on a television monitor mounted in the corner of the room. The station surveillance footage played in crisp 4K quality. It showed Ethan picking up the trunk, carrying it up 60 stairs, and walking alongside it. But the angle of the camera was cut in such a way that the old lady was hidden behind a concrete pillar during the entire footage. To anyone watching the video, it appeared as though Ethan was traveling alone with the dead body in broad daylight. During his second night in cell block C, Ethan couldn't sleep. The cold concrete walls seemed to shrink around him, and every distant clang of a metal door sent shivers down his spine. He spent hours staring at his calloused hands, the same hands that had lifted that cursed trunk. In the forensic crime lab across town, lead technician Dr. Helen Vance was discovering anomalies that didn't fit the police department's narrative. When she scraped the interior lining of the vintage leather trunk, she didn't just find blood. Embedded deep within the brass latches was a microscopic trace of rare industrial embalming fluid mixed with high-grade European lavender oil. This specific chemical compound wasn't available in hardware stores or chemical suppliers. It was an expensive, custom formula used exclusively by private luxury mortuaries catering to elite high society families. Dr. Vance logged the chemical report into the police database, but within 20 minutes, her digital file was mysteriously encrypted and restricted by higher administrative authorities. Someone inside the department was actively suppressing forensic evidence that pointed away from Ethan. Meanwhile, in the holding cell, Detective Vance walked up to the iron bars, looking down at Ethan with cold eyes. "You're a medical student, Ethan," the detective said, tossing a cup of lukewarm coffee against the bars. "You know how chemical preservatives work. You knew that trunk would keep the smell contained long enough for you to reach the reservoir." "I am innocent," Ethan screamed, his voice cracking with desperation. "Check the CCTV cameras at the north entrance. Check the rain patterns on my jacket. I was only helping a woman." The north entrance camera had a power glitch for 4 to 5 seconds right when you walked in, Vance replied coldly. "Convenient timing for a killer, wouldn't you say?" Ethan sank back onto his metal cot. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Someone with immense power had orchestrated this frame-up with surgical precision. Every camera angle, every electronic failure, every piece of evidence had been calculated to trap him. Within 72 hours, Ethan's name was plastered across every national news network. Headlines screamed, "The Courier Killer. Medical student uses delivery routes to transport billionaire's body." Public outrage was instantaneous. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse demanding the death penalty. The prosecution's narrative was ironclad. Victor Sterling had been murdered over a failed blackmail scheme, and Ethan Vance had been paid $500,000 via dark web accounts to execute the disposal of the body. The trial began 3 weeks later in a packed courtroom. Sitting at the defense table, Ethan looked pale and hollow. Beside him sat Clara Reed, a relentless court-appointed public defender who was the only person in the city who believed Ethan was innocent. "Ethan," Clara whispered as the prosecutor gave his opening statement, "the forensic evidence is brutal. If we can't find that elderly woman, you are going to spend the rest of your life in a maximum security prison." On day 3 of the trial, the prosecution dropped a bomb that stunned the entire courtroom. The state calls Mrs. Eleanor Finch to the stand, announced lead prosecutor Richard Sterling, the victim's cousin. Ethan's eyes widened. Walking toward the witness stand, supported by a wooden cane, was the exact elderly woman from the subway station. Ethan leaned forward, a surge of hope rushing through his veins. Clara, that's her. She can tell them the truth. She's the one who asked me for help. Eleanor Finch took the witness oath. She adjusted her reading glasses, looking fragile and heartbroken. Prosecutor Sterling approached her carefully. Mrs. Finch, on the night of October 14th, were you at the Grand Central Transit Terminal? Yes, sir, she quavered, her voice trembling. And did you see the defendant, Ethan Vance, on that night? Eleanor turned her gaze slowly toward Ethan. Tears welled up in her eyes. Yes, I saw him. Can you tell the court what happened between you and the defendant? Eleanor took a deep breath, clutching a handkerchief. I was standing near the subway entrance waiting for my taxi when that young man approached me. He had that black trunk on a rolling cart. He bumped into me intentionally, knocked my purse to the ground, and threatened me. He told me if I said a word to anyone about what he was carrying, he would find out where I lived and kill my family. He forced me to walk up the stairs with him so it looked like we were together. Ethan slammed his hands onto the defense table, jumping to his feet. That is a lie. You asked me for help. Why are you lying? Order in the court. Judge Harrison bellowed, slamming his gavel down repeatedly. Sit down, Mr. Vance, or I will have you removed. Ethan collapsed back into his chair, tears of helplessness burning his eyes. Clara Reed held him down, her mind spinning. Why would an 82-year-old grandmother lie under oath to frame an innocent courier for murder? At 2 o'clock in the morning, 48 hours before the final verdict, Clara Reed received a cryptic text message from an unregistered burner number. City Docks. Pier 14. Come alone if you want to save Ethan Vance. Despite the danger, Clara drove through the blinding rain to the deserted industrial docks. Standing in the shadow of a rusted shipping container was a figure in a heavy raincoat, an anonymous whistleblower who worked as a senior paralegal at Richard Sterling's law firm. I can't give you my name, the whistleblower whispered, handing Clara a red USB flash drive. If Richard Sterling finds out I spoke to you, I'll end up in a trunk just like his cousin. Clara plugged the drive into her laptop inside her car. The files revealed a secret financial audit executed 3 days before Victor Sterling's murder. Victor had discovered that his cousin Richard had embezzled over $12 million from their joint investment fund to cover massive offshore gambling debts. Victor was planning to report Richard to the Federal Bureau of Investigation on Wednesday morning. Richard murdered Victor on Tuesday evening to stop the report. But Richard needed a fall guy, someone with zero criminal record, someone who was physically capable of carrying a heavy trunk, and someone whose daily route passed near the reservoir drop point. The flash drive contained an audio recording from Richard Sterling's private office phone. In the recording, Richard could be heard speaking to a professional fixer on the dark web. Find an unsuspecting courier near Grand Central Station, Richard's voice said coldly. Use the trunk swap method at the coffee kiosk. Make sure the decoy is an old person so the courier feels obligated to carry it. The CCTV cameras at entrance 4 will do the rest. Clara gripped her steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. She finally had the smoking gun that would tear prosecutor Richard Sterling's case into pieces. With the jury visibly horrified by Eleanor Finch's testimony, Clara Reed knew she had less than 72 hours before closing arguments. Ethan was facing life imprisonment without parole. That night, Clara locked herself in her office, surrounded by thousands of pages of case files, digital blueprints of Victor Sterling's business empire, and raw surveillance archives. She started with the trunk itself. According to the police evidence log, the trunk was a bespoke, handcrafted vintage trunk manufactured by House of Vane, an elite European leather company that catered exclusively to the ultra-wealthy. Only 10 such trunks had ever been manufactured worldwide. Clara pulled up the sales records of House of Vane. 5 of the trunks were owned by private collectors in Europe. 3 were in museums. 1 belonged to the victim, Victor Sterling. And the 10th trunk? It had been purchased 4 years ago by a private holding company registered under the name Nautilus Logistics. Clara's heart skipped a beat. She ran a corporate registry search on Nautilus Logistics. The executive board of Nautilus Logistics included only one living director, Prosecutor Richard Sterling, the victim's own cousin who was currently leading the trial against Ethan. Clara immediately hired Dr. Aries Thorne, a top forensic video analyst, to re-examine all municipal CCTV camera feeds around Grand Central Terminal from the night of the murder. Look closely at the timestamps, Clara, Dr. Thorne said, adjusting his screen contrast. The police only examined the camera feed from entrance 4, where Ethan carried the trunk. But look at camera 12, located near the underground coffee kiosk, 20 minutes before Ethan arrived. Dr. Thorne zoomed in on the high-definition video feed. At 7:54 p.m., Eleanor Finch was seen sitting on a bench near the coffee kiosk, holding a light, inexpensive fabric luggage bag, not the heavy leather trunk. At 7:56 p.m., a tall man wearing a dark trench coat, leather gloves, and a wide-brimmed hat walked past Eleanor's bench. In his right hand, he pushed an identical vintage black leather trunk on hidden rubber wheels. As Eleanor turned her head for 3 seconds to wipe rain off her glasses, the man in the trench coat executed a masterfully timed swap. He grabbed her fabric bag and left the heavy leather trunk right beside her footrest. When Eleanor put her glasses back on, she assumed the trunk was her bag. But when she tried to lift it, it was far too heavy. Confused and embarrassed, she shuffled toward the subway exit, where she spotted Ethan Vance. "My God," Clara gasped, staring at the screen. Ethan wasn't chosen by accident. The killer left a heavy body in a public terminal, knowing that an elderly woman wouldn't be able to move it, and knowing that a helpful stranger would step in to lift it. The killer created a human decoy. It was the final day of the murder trial. The prosecution was ready to deliver its closing arguments and send Ethan Vance to prison for life. Judge Harrison looked at the defense. Defense counsel Reed, "You may proceed with your closing argument." Clara Reed stood up calmly. "Your Honor, before closing arguments, the defense requests to present newly discovered forensic digital evidence, evidence that proves a catastrophic miscarriage of justice." Prosecutor Richard Sterling jumped up instantly. "Objection, Your Honor. The defense is playing stall tactics." "Overruled," Judge Harrison declared sternly. "I will allow the evidence." Clara dimmed the lights of the courtroom and projected Dr. Thorne's frame-by-frame video analysis onto the massive courtroom screens. The jury watched in breathless silence as the video played in super slow motion. They saw the man in the trench coat execute the trunk swap near the coffee kiosk. They saw Eleanor Finch looking completely confused by the bag beside her feet. And they saw Ethan Vance walking down the stairs, completely unaware of the trap he was walking into. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Clara's voice echoed through the silent room. Ethan Vance did not murder Victor Sterling. He did not transport a body for money. He was an innocent young man who saw an elderly woman in need and helped her. He was framed by an elaborate, sadistic mastermind. The courtroom erupted into whispers. Clara turned her gaze directly toward Eleanor Finch, who was sitting in the front row of the gallery, sobbing hysterically. "Your Honor," Clara said softly, "I request that Eleanor Finch be recalled to the stand for one final question." Eleanor walked back to the witness stand, her body trembling uncontrollably. Clara approached her gently. "Mrs. Finch, we know about the trunk swap. We know you didn't know what was inside that trunk on Tuesday night. But we also know you lied on this stand 2 days ago when you accused Ethan of threatening you. Why did you lie?" Eleanor collapsed into sobs, burying her face in her hands. "I had no choice. Oh God, I had no choice." "Who threatened you, Eleanor?" Clara asked firmly. The night before the trial started, Eleanor wept. A man came to my house. He showed me a video of my 7-year-old grandson at his elementary school. He told me if I didn't identify Ethan Vance as the killer in court, my grandson would never come home. Gasps filled the gallery. Police officers immediately surrounded Eleanor Finch to protect her. Judge Harrison slammed his gavel down hard. Bailiffs, lock all doors of this courtroom immediately. Nobody leaves. Clara Reed walked over to Prosecutor Richard Sterling, who was frantically packing his leather briefcase, his face deathly pale. "You don't need to pack, Mr. Sterling," Clara said coldly. "Federal agents are already outside." Clara turned to the judge. "Your Honor, 3 hours ago, federal agents raided the corporate headquarters of Nautilus Logistics. They found the original blood samples of Victor Sterling, as well as the dark web payment servers used to orchestrate this entire frame-up." Prosecutor Richard Sterling motivated his cousin to take control of a $100 million inheritance fund, and he used a duplicate vintage trunk and an innocent courier to create the perfect fall guy. Federal marshals burst through the courtroom doors, grabbing Richard Sterling and slapping handcuffs onto his wrists as he screamed curses at Clara and Ethan. Judge Harrison turned to Ethan Vance. "Mr. Vance, this court extends its deepest apologies for the horrific ordeal you have suffered. All charges against you are dismissed with prejudice. You are a free man." The courtroom erupted into cheers. Ethan fell back into his seat, burying his head in his hands as tears of pure relief streamed down his cheeks. Clara hugged him tightly. Outside the courthouse, 72 hours after his nightmare began, Ethan stepped out into the crisp morning sunlight. The rain had finally stopped. Cameras flashed, but Ethan ignored the reporters. He walked down the courthouse steps, took a deep breath of fresh air, and called his sister to tell her he was coming home. In the darkest corners of human nature, evil often hides behind the most innocent circumstances. Ethan Vance survived a nightmare designed to ruin his life forever. But it leaves us with one haunting question. The next time a stranger asks you for help in the dark, will you stop? Subscribe to 72 Hours Crime for more spine-chilling psychological thrillers.